when you move to open source architectures, you basically are allowing, or you're opening up, as tier ones, as OEMs, you're opening up to the ecosystem. Now you can basically have applications that can change over time. So there is something that is very relevant today when you're launching it, but maybe, say, if I'm using a Linux operating system, maybe 3 years later I want to use an Android operating system. Like, do I have to, actually take the hardware and throw it out? No. Actually, hardware is the most overrated thing, really, if you look at it from an automotive electronics. There's too much focus because the cost right now at SOP is in the hardware. But if you really look at the total cost of ownership and the cost for the OEM over the life, it's not in the hardware. It's in the software and services, and that's where it's going to change. $50 billion is just going to be the software services part associated with the car. And just amount of data that's going to be there, which is going to be transmitted from and to the car, is actually going to be a huge piece again. So you have to move to open architectures, you have to move to opening up to the ecosystem where you could change applications. There will also be some kind of an ECU consolidation that's going to happen. So you will have, Visteon has a technology where we call it smart core, where I'm using a quad core processor, and each core is running a different operating system. On one core, I run QNX, where I run an instrument cluster. On the second, I run Linux, where I run an infotainment. On third, I run Android, where I give cloud connectivity. On fourth, I run ADAS. But I can basically change. I can take one out and actually plug something in later. And if the OEM wants to change it 2 years later, or if the end consumer wants to change it 2 years later, you could basically do that. So, I guess that's where I mean by design to adapt.
Thanks. I would have loved to have all the other panelists also talk on it, but we have a hard stop at 3 o'clock. What I'd like to do is maybe open it up to the audience for questions to any of the panelists or to myself. So maybe we can have a couple of questions from the audience. Yeah, please. To build a? All right, let me put that to the experts here.
This is very favorite topic last 5-6 years, by the way. So a lot of market research and all these things have been done. From the country perspective, it was realized and concluded it's strategically very, very important that we have the wafer fab in the country. And as you know, the proposals were done, 2 consortiums were shortlisted to do setting of these wafer fabs. It goes through its own challenges with regards to the capex as well as the capacity which is available existing in the world. There are many factors that's playing over here, but unfortunately, these projects are delayed, but they are progressing. So far, what we hear through the department, those are working with these 2 consortiums. So these are projects are in a progress actually, but it's going to take a little more time because even after the decision and putting the first stone laying ceremony, it will take at least 3 years, 2.5 to 3 years before wafer fab is ready. So I would say it is not so straightforward and easy to have the wafer fab over here. And also, as Chetan indicated, it is not that you set up a wafer fab and you are using it for anything and everything actually. The technologies have become so diverse and so different that it cannot be dependent only on the local requirements and local needs. Everything has to be globally competitive. Everything has to be more systematic in terms of the operational excellence. That is also one of the points which was brought over by the panelists. Not only applicable for automotive, but also from semiconductor perspective, that all operational efficiencies are very, very critical. So it's going to take some more time, but it's realized by the various circles that India need to have the wafer fabs going forward. I think we need to wait a little more time before it gets on roll.
Great. Yeah, please.
What about preventing the driver from getting distracted by all these great things? And what about the safety aspects of building into the design that the driver has to, he is going to be allowed to download a movie and perhaps getting himself distracted by the movie and taking his eyes off the road. What is the safety or security aspects there?
I'm going to give you the the long-term picture, we're going to go to driverless cars. So he can watch download his movies, have fun, and do everything. You know, be drunk, do whatever he wants. We get the driver out of the picture because he's the biggest culprit around safety. But I'll give you a better perspective of the medium term to short term here.
Yeah, I can give the perspective on how some of the technologies are addressing that. So very clearly, using cell phones in whatever way, whether it's downloading a movie or playing, hopefully not playing Angry Birds, distracts people from driving. So technologically, what's happening is some of the technologies I mentioned, the smartphone connectivity technologies from Apple called CarPlay or Android Auto from Google or MirrorLink, they actually enable only certain set of applications that can be controlled from the car. And when you connect the mobile phone to the car and use those applications, they have been designed to not distract the driver. So you can access your map, Google Maps from the navigation system of the car, so that you don't need to touch your phone. You can control it from there. So don't try to prevent the driver from using it. Give him the ability to use it in the right way, the right set of applications. So that's the philosophy that they're trying to do. And these things do not allow you to go to and see a movie when you're driving. They have a drive mode and a park mode. Only in drive mode, you can only see those set of few applications that the phone manufacturer allows you. In park mode, you can see anything you want. So if you can't beat them, join them. That's the philosophy that the manufacturers are taking.
Let me add a word there actually. So I think you have heard about this concept of ADAS, which stands for Advanced Driver Assistance System, not the distraction. And there are various things that are going on right now actually. There's a tremendous amount of innovation which is happening over there, and I'll just take two examples actually. So it's really not distracting the driver, but it's really helping the driver. One is I talked about the vehicle-to-vehicle communication. So you are driving a car, there are a couple of trucks, and there is another car in front. It brakes, you don't know. Somebody has braked and then everybody hits each other. The moment you have this ADAS-related vehicle-to-vehicle communication installed, the moment the first car brakes, there is a signal which is being sent to the previous car, which is maybe behind few cars already, or behind few trucks. And they authenticate each other by security mechanism, so it's not a false alarm, it's the right alarm. And the driver knows, and the signal and the display is coming, and then the driver takes accordingly steps so that it doesn't get into crash or accident. The second example is, you look at now the technology, how it has moved, and particularly from a seminar perspective. For example, recently, we launched one 77 gigahertz radar chip, which is like a stamp size, small one. It can work reconfigured for a low or medium or the long range, and you can put a couple of those sensors all around the cars and you get signal actually. Inside the vehicle, you are looking at the Ethernet communication, and through radars, get all the signals and communication, and you know exactly what's going on around without getting distracted actually. So that's how it is going to progress, and there are a few more examples we can talk about. So clearly there is a concept of ADAS and not distraction over here.
So this discussion is getting a lot more here. We started the session 15 minutes late, and I had a personal commitment to catch a flight, so I will need to move on. But since we have 9 minutes left in this session, can I suggest we continue the questions here? Maybe Nambi can give his perspective on this, and then Ashok, if I can ask you on my behalf to continue this session here. Very interesting. I'd love to stay on, and wish you guys all the best. Thanks.
I had a question.
Yeah.
You all started by speaking about the future being peer-to-peer and car-to-infrastructure communication. My question is, how far away in the future till we really see a car as just another device on a network where a car carries its own SIM and thereby is able to communicate whether it's the health of the engine, the system, whether it's a security issue where it gives out its lat and long, whether it's marriage to an insurance company system such that insurance premia come down. How far away in the future are from a really connected car?
So let me take this to Amit.
Yeah, so if you really look at, we spoke of connected cars, autonomous cars, and there are really 4 different levels of these. You have the connected driver. The first step is connected driver. That's where we are today. We are talking of Bluetooth connectivity, Wi-Fi connectivity within the car. We're talking about gateways through the cell phone. These are all called connected drivers. Then you have the connected car. Now, connected car is what you're talking about, where there is an embedded SIM and the car without a cell phone is able to connect to the cloud. Third is you have semi-autonomous cars where the car functions automatically, takes certain decisions on its own, and the fourth is a fully autonomous car. So there's 4 steps. Now, where are we in India? We are in the connected driver space. What does it take to move to the connected car? I mean, I have a very simplistic view on this. It's a lot of money that's involved to be put into the car. Are the OEMs ready to put that money? No, because the end perceived value of that is not as much today. They are struggling. They're struggling with giving basic features because there's not enough pull right now. Now, you can look at it from a viewpoint that when the first iPad came out, how many people really believed they needed an iPad? Not many, right? But now it's, it's all over. Same thing could happen with telematics, or could happen, also with the connected car. But we need to see. Today we live in a country where ABS and airbags aren't mandatory. Basic safety features in the car are not regulatory driven. So with this condition, if you really say, I want connected car because it's going to drive so many other features, I think it's still a little, away. And you could only have 2 ways that you're going to get this in. One is you create enough use cases that the OEMs are ready to spend the money on it, or number 2, it's regulatory driven. So if the government mandates that every car needs to have its own, like GPS in it, and you could track it and send out data, so that's the regulatory driven, and I think that's still far away.
Let me add quickly in 1 minute additional point here actually. So in its larger scope, it is going to take some more time, as Amit indicated. But if you look at into the smaller scope, it's already there. There are some aftermarket attachments available right now. Those in a simplistic view are connected to the cloud. And we have the safety alarms, those are created. The emergency crash situations, those are created. And it can also give you the address of nearby garage where you can take the car and such kind of things. I've been involved into some of the startup ecosystem. And I have seen many of these startups coming with such kind of innovative ideas. These are not fully completed or not fully marketed, but these are in the experimental stage. So this kind of concepts are coming up actually. May not be in a full-blown what we have shown you as a final picture, which is going to take a couple of years or maybe a few years more, but we are just moving towards that because it's all electronic semiconductor software that is what going to create the innovation. We can take the next question, please.
I have a question on safety. We talked about the complexity of automotive software being much larger than an airplane. Now, people can't be next to a flying airplane to open the door, but given the standards that are out there for automotive versus avionics, where avionics was earlier mentioned that there is no single bit of unused code or unrequired code, how is the standard strength, I guess, against avionics compared to in the automotive industry?
Nambi, you could take this?
Yeah, I will take
Thanks.
it. Okay, I think Chetan and Amit did talk about open architecture. And if you look at automotive industries, we have something like AUTOSAR. AUTOSAR is a standard specifications about how each function should be implemented, what is the safety mechanism we need to build into the systems so that there are no unused codes, there are no uninitialized variables and things like that. That is the one piece. Then second is like, I think some of you may be aware of it, the functional safety, 262, 620. That specifies a lot of what you said. So now what OE is looking at is like, is your product, what you're developing from a hardware and software perspective, it's AUTOSAR compliant. They do specify which stack you have to use it, and then how close it is to functional safety compliance. There are different levels, QM and ASIL 1, 2, 3, 4. Our autonomous vehicle feature functions should be highest level of safety implementations, so that right from the end, the way you get your signal from the sensor, all the way up to processed and give us an output, it's the data integrity needs to be maintained. If there is any failure in the systems, or we have a fallback arrangement so that it don't lead to any accidents or loss of data. Not just the safety, it's also applicable to the data connectivity and vehicle-to-vehicle communications, because you can't take a wrong decision just because either you lost the data or in absence of data.